Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, November the 10th, 2020. As always, we are pleased to be here today on the traditional treaty of Territory 6. Or sorry, we're here. We're pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. As we start off tonight, we have three proclamations. The first one I'm pleased to present is the proclamation for Métis Week from November 15th to the 21st on 2020. Whereas Métis Week is an opportunity to commemorate the legacy of Louis Riel and recognize the sacrifices of all Métis people who continue to strive towards rights and recognition as a distinct nation. And whereas the City of Beaumont recognizes the important role that Métis people have played in the community and the contributions they continue to make to the city. And whereas Beaumont's vision to be a vibrant, inclusive, diverse, livable, and sustainable community requires the community to commit to a strong relationship with the Métis people and communities across the province. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim November 15th to 21st, 2020 as Métis Week in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 5th day of November, 2020. As a side note, we will also be raising the Métis flag on Monday morning for those that are interested. Second proclamation today is National Child Day for November 20th, 2020. Whereas by ratifying the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1991, Canada made a commitment to ensure that all children are treated with dignity and respect. And whereas this commitment includes the opportunity for children to have a voice, be protected from harm, and be provided with their basic needs, and every opportunity to reach their full potential. And whereas the City of Beaumont and Family and Community Support Services celebrate our children and recognize the importance of children in our community, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim November 20th, 2020 as National Child Day in the City of Beaumont, dated this 20th day of November, 2020. And last proclamation for today is Women's Entrepreneurship Day, November 19th, 2020. Whereas the City of Beaumont recognizes the important role that women have as leaders in business and industry who contribute to our economy, our workforce, and overall quality of life. And whereas women entrepreneurs are innovative and inspiring and work to make their community stronger, and whereas pioneering business women within Beaumont and across Alberta are sources of inspiration for us all. And whereas the City of Beaumont values the significant role of women in our society, whose contributions are vital in creating a vibrant workforce and community. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim November 19th, 2020 is Women's Entrepreneurship Day in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 14th day of October, 2020. I'm very pleased to read those. They mark some very important occasions within our city. Are there any, as we move forward in the meeting, are there any changes to the agenda as presented? Oop, try that one.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration does not have any amendments to the agenda this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, so moved.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. All in favor? That carries unanimously. There is no consent agenda tonight, as we would only have one item on it, and we'll just deal with it as it comes up in the agenda, which brings us to item 4, open forum. Mr. Maurice Morinville to speak to us. Good evening, Mr. Morinville. Glad you could join us tonight. The floor is yours. And you're on mute. Still on mute. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Okay, so hi and thanks. I'm just going to start my slide stack. And Okay, so can everyone see the slides okay?
Yeah, we can see the shared screen, yeah.
Okay, so I'll introduce myself. I've retired from the technology field where I was a hardware tech. I moved into software and then data networks. I started in data networks in the 90s as the shift to internet and remote computing was starting to develop. I worked with emerging technologies. I worked on early networks that became the internet, eventually managing activities for the AGN PAC, Alberta Government Network Packet, which eventually morphed into SuperNet. So with my specific knowledge of the industry, I feel comfortable commenting on the City of Beaumont high-speed internet proposal. So the first question is, why do we need the risk to fix the problem? But my investigation reveals there is no really specific problem. So it doesn't seem sensible to take a risk that you don't need to. Currently, Beaumont has available fiber to some homes, or if not, then there's cable, and both are providing 1 gig speeds or higher. Newer subdivisions would have had fiber and cable provided to homes as is current practice. Older homes would have been provided fiber within the next 2 years. I refer to that as organic evolution. I've seen it occur throughout my time in the technology field. Things will naturally evolve at the pace that society accepts. Networks will have technical issues and normal procedures to diagnose the problem and resolve it. So I also understand there was a memorandum of understanding with TELUS. The City of Beaumont had a memorandum of understanding with TELUS to upgrade the network over the next 2 years, which included bringing fiber to each home. And without explanation, the City of Beaumont walked away. TELUS pulled the approved funding of approximately $60 million. I really don't understand why that occurred. This is just a map of the mobility area of 5G service versus the 4G LTE. And as you can see, Beaumont has become isolated. And I'm just wondering if there's not some sort of animosity perhaps between administration and some of the carriers offering services in Beaumont. So, but it does seem sort of funny that we are an island on ourselves. The financial risk. How much will this cost the City of Beaumont? The city is not required to pay anything for the network, but I can't see that being true because Jacobs is charging consulting fees, and that has to be paid. The fees charged to other budget accounts for this purpose still represent a cost. So you may say, well, we didn't spend money directly, but indirectly, somewhere the money's being paid out. Our contribution to the project is providing access to city-owned rights-of-way. The fiber optic cables will go. So do we currently charge other companies for access? And how much control over city-owned rights-of-way does the City of Beaumont have? There's certain national regulations regarding access to telecom. And are we limiting others' access by going in this route? Also mentioned by the city is, however, if the city chose at some point to pay some of the cost, it would also receive a share of the revenue. So this means that we can pay if it proves to be profitable, and if not, we don't have to pay anything. So the money that we spend waiting until we decide whether to participate and whether it will make a profit, like, I don't understand how this works. The City of Beaumont isn't taking on any financial risk. In fact, there's a much greater risk of Beaumont falling behind and missing economic opportunities if we take a passive approach and wait for traditional internet infrastructure to be installed. This isn't a fact. There is a financial risk. Olds has done this, and they now want to divest themselves of the network. They've had to extend their financing and rearrange it because they weren't able to make the payments based on the revenue stream. So ONET, which is the company that's doing the feet on the ground work, is not profitable. Falling behind what? This is sort of rhetoric and propaganda with no real evidence of what we're falling behind. And there is no real evidence, and the kind that you would need to make a complex decision like this. Do I have a choice if I don't want to be connected to the network? Yes, property owners will not have to be connected to the network. However, we strongly recommend at least having the connection to your home completed. So it seems to indicate that property owners are going to be required to pay for the connection. And if this is the case, what's the advantage to the homeowner? So whether you choose to sign up with an internet service provider to use the connection is entirely your decision. It seems to be getting complicated. Currently, you call an ISP, you pick a plan, and you're connected. The proposed way, the property owner will pay out of pocket to connect, then choose the ISP. This is not better, it's just more expensive. Access to high-speed fiber optic broadband internet is quickly becoming an essential utility around the world. By choosing not at least have your property connected to the network, you maybe limit the future potential. Not sure, but it sounds like a warning. Be prepared to pay a connect fee. If the fiber to the home is available for connection at no charge, such as is the case now, why would someone want to pay to be connected? Doesn't make any sense. Who is? Jacobs, they're an engineering company. They're not a network specialist company. They hire the expertise to fill project roles. There's no real visionary expertise in networks. They will need to make a profit. They're in business to make a profit. You can look at them on the stock exchange. Their largest contract is NASA, which apparently they could be losing, which questions their profitability. Smart City Capital is a finance company providing money to build. They will need to make a profit. So what I'm seeing here is companies are going to need to make a profit, but somehow we're getting in partnership with them and we have no financial obligation. I don't understand how that all comes about. We have Nokia, which is a hardware provider promoting smart cities futures, and they will need to make a profit. It's just common business sense. Smart cities. So the federal government had a program to promote smart cities. There were several communities that won. I noticed that Beaumont didn't win anything. I don't know if we even applied, but the other side of this coin is that it's a controversial concept of the future. Not everyone's thinking that smart cities is necessarily a good idea. It's very, shall we say, philosophical and contentious at this point in time. So what I found through my research is the internet projects that have been exampled, like Chattanooga, and I went and found the Utah one with Utopia. Most of the models are around several communities joining together in a geographic area because they didn't have good service in those areas. Not just a single community. The problem was no connection to the small towns and cities. Large providers in the US tend to avoid these as there are reduced revenue potential or even losses. In Canada, it's different. In Canada, there's a tradition of provisioning rural areas, so this is not the same problem that they have in the States. Access speed is not transport speed. As access speeds increase, in other words, as people get 1 gig connections, 10 gig connections, we'll experience slowness developing on the transport side until bandwidth is increased. So already I'm using gig plus speeds, and I can sense a slowness. The slowness is from the transport that's carrying that internet connection from Germany to here. It's also with the ability of the host sites to serve up. Do they have the speed to feed the internet as fast as it can work? So what we're starting to see is the access speeds are starting to be higher than the delivery channels that we have. So having high speed at home without the ability to receive doesn't make a whole much of sense. The big question, who's going to run the network? A company is going to need to be formed unless it's subcontracted to an existing company, but there's still going to be a cost to hire that company to manage the network. So this company will be responsible for the debt. The odds of being profitable in the first decade are slim to none. And after that, the technology will shift and the whole network could be worthless while still having a massive debt. In other words, what you buy today, if it becomes obsolete tomorrow, you still own it and have to pay for it. That was a big transition from the traditional plain old telephone networks to the internet. Amortization periods have reduced substantially. Small operations such as old ONET requires 14 employees at the professional level, incurring substantial expenses for salary and benefits, along with the associated problem of finding and retaining that expertise. So quickly, you're looking at just average 90,000 per employee. So you can see what the operational cost for this kind of business would be. Now is not the time as well. We have all had our lives impacted by the COVID pandemic. Our norms have changed. Focus is being dictated by circumstance, not our pleasure. Federal, provincial, and municipal governments are all spending unusual amounts of money, and eventually there will be a reckoning. Money will become tight, project priorities will shift, and access to funds will be difficult. Not a good time to be embarking on an extensive and expensive undertaking at this time of heightened anxiety. As the high-speed internet proposal is not mission critical, it should be put aside for the time being so citizens can see the real issues facing us today being addressed. After reviewing the history of several groups that have embarked on similar plans, the following came to light. The need to finance was consistent. They started off with financing, but they normally had to refinance. And refinancing usually involved changing the responsibility for the debt. And the debt usually shifted to the municipalities, or that debt be financed or bond-based. Customer uptakes are not as high as projected. This is one of the key reasons that most of these projects falter. There's an assumption they're going to get so many clients, but they don't. It's also difficult to maintain customer satisfaction levels. A lot of these companies that do this sort of thing are not perceived as being and delivering the best level of services. City of Beaumont high-speed internet. My position is that Beaumont does not have a problem with internet speed, period. If the hype is to be believed, this proposed fastest network commercially available, which is not necessarily true, will drive business to Beaumont. It is one thing to irrationally think like this, but to put them forward as sound business ideas, there's no reason. There's a lack of details. There's nothing of evidence saying that this is going to really generate any potential business. So it's just speculation. If people are having internet issues, perhaps they should look internally at how their home network is configured, as 80% of problems will be improper setups. Putting fiber to the home will not resolve issues with internal configuration problems, which many people are suffering. Not all the people want to spend money for high-speed internet. I know lots of people that don't have high speeds because they won't pay for higher service levels. So investing, obviously someone's providing capital with the intent of making a profit in a product that's already in play. In other words, it's already internet, high-speed internet. And not knowing the exact market opportunity is not what should be considered wise as a business decision. Transparency and representation. This is a complex request, requires substantial amounts of analysis, reports, and discussion. Concerned that council appears to be waiting on information, this info should have already been provided. Expecting people to receive information shortly before making an important decision is unreasonable. Some specific information should be available to the public It is possible to provide detail while still maintaining certain elements of confidentiality. Too easy to throw out the non-disclosure clause and do nothing. The supporting info for this proposal has been terrible. A project of this importance with the high risk it brings should have more public discussion and debate. I did the survey, which was not very good. I say this having participated in building surveys, as well as responding to plenty of surveys. And I currently, for a number of years, have been participating in Canadian business surveys as a member of the Modus panel. So from that, I've gained insights as to what a good survey should contain. That is my formal presentation at this point.
Thank you very much for coming in to speak to us tonight. We do appreciate you taking the time. It should be noted that this item is not up for debate tonight, and that council does share some of your concerns, and that as information becomes available as we make this decision into the following months, we'll take your position here under advisement and consider it when due at the appropriate time. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Well, thank you.
Okay, which brings us to item 5A, adoption of meeting minutes for the regular council meeting of October 27, 2020. Is there a member of council willing to move adoption of the minutes? Councillor Barnhart.
Moved, Your Worship.
Appreciate it. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. There brings us to item 6. There are no public hearings. Brings us to item 7A, registered presentation. It's my pleasure to welcome Laura Winton from the Beaumont Library in for an update. Laura, the floor is yours. Oh, can we hear her?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Okay, we got you. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Now I have to figure out how I share my screen on here. Hopefully that's not too complicated. Whoop. Maybe it is. Oh, there we go. Whoop.
Okay, there we go. It's starting the screen share.
Okay, can everybody see the screen? Oh. Okay, I know what I had to do. I needed to close down YouTube, which was playing the live stream. That helps. Okay, let me try this again. Oh, technology, you're failing me.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can see it.
Oh, you can see my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right, then I'll just get going. Okay, sorry about that. Hello to all of council, and thank you guys so much for the opportunity to present to you today. The last time I saw everybody as a group, let me just duplicate here. The last time I saw everybody as a group, I was in my second day on the job. It was back in March. I didn't own a single mask at the time, and I think that none of us maybe would have predicted what the next 8 months or so would have in store. So I've got a bit of time under my belt now, and I wanted to have a chance to come before you guys again with an update on what the library's been doing for the community during the pandemic. I want to talk a little bit about some exciting projects we have upcoming, some relationships and partnerships we've formed and are forming, and our direction moving forward in 2021. So hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at the little 2-pager I sent out that I believe is attached to the agenda, but if you didn't get a chance, that's fine. I'm going to run through the highlights. The library did close to the public on March 15th, and we didn't reopen for over 3 months, but it was actually quite a busy time for us. And I'm going to touch on some of the services we offered and the uptake that we had from our community. So we really hit the ground running and released our first virtual program for kids and families on March 18th. So that was only 3 days after we closed to the public. We had never done a virtual program before, but we really hopped to it and figured things out quickly. We focused on children 0 to 6 in our initial offerings with 5 to 10-minute videos that included rhymes, stories, and songs. We saw a lot of engagement with those videos, so we quickly expanded to offer family story times for all ages, book club challenges for tweens and teens, and a Harry Potter book club and scavenger hunt for youth. So to date, we've produced 127 recorded virtual programs. These are released on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And these programs saw, just by the end of the summer alone, 15,000 views with an average of 118 views per program. And those numbers are still rising because the videos are still posted and people are coming back and rewatching. So we have expanded over the course of the summer and the fall after we reopened, and we now include a suite of live children's and adult programs and a youth book club virtually. So we have some registered Zoom programs that we're offering as well, where participants interact with our programmers in real time, all from the safety of their home. One of the other services we implemented during our closure was virtual chat service. This was made possible by the Yellowhead Regional Library, who acquired a virtual chat software, but we were the first regional library in the province to implement the service. So while our doors were closed, and even now that they're open, customers can chat in real time with library staff using the chat box on our website. We heard pretty immediately after we closed, by phone, by email, on Facebook, on Instagram, pretty much anywhere people could reach us, they were telling us that they were missing our collections and our resources. So on May 19th, we started offering COVID-friendly curbside borrowing of materials, and demand was huge. Over the course of a month and a half, we lent over 1,000 items using this model, and we continue to offer this option for people who aren't comfortable coming into the library to pick up material. We know that the library plays a huge role in preventing summer slide, and that's the loss of learning and skills that happens when kids are out of school over the summer. Normally in a non-COVID year, we offer a hugely popular in-person educational programming suite through the summer, but we knew we couldn't do what we usually do with our summer reading club this year. So during the closure, our incredible summer programmers spent their time developing a virtual summer reading club. We offered programming for kindergarten to grade 5 students, and we did a ton. There were crafts, we read stories, we issued reading and science challenges, we coordinated a virtual reading buddies program, and the list goes on. In total, we released 67 virtual summer reading programs, and we saw over 4,600 views on those. Finally, for the closure, I wanted to highlight the heavy usage we saw and the increases in active users. I think it's not totally surprising that our e-resource usage went way up. People didn't have access to our physical items, and they didn't have access to bookstores to buy things. But we really saw a huge increase. We had 6,000 downloads during that time, 1,500 Wi-Fi sessions, and a 30% increase in e-resource usage. We also had huge numbers of people either renew an expired membership or create new memberships since the outset of COVID. We've seen an 18% increase in active users. So Beaumontonians need their library, and they've been using it heavily during COVID. We reopened the building on July 2nd, and since we reopened, we certainly haven't slowed down. We've been quite active with programming and events, and we're really always motivated by the question of, what does Beaumont need right now? And one of the obvious answers to that question right off the hop was in-person activities. With school online and so many in-person activities for families, children, and adults closed or going virtual, we wanted to find ways to safely offer those in-person connections. We started during the summer with outside programming. It went incredibly well, and with that under our belt, we felt ready to move forward with indoor in-person programming this fall. So we've adjusted capacity numbers, we've revamped some program content to ensure everything is COVID safe. And I'm proud to say that we were one of the first and we remain one of the only libraries in Alberta offering in-person programming right now. I've actually been fielding questions from other larger libraries about how we've made all of this work. So we're really leading the way with in-person programming during COVID. Along with in-person programs, we saw a real need for opportunities for the community to gather and celebrate. And the library has an incredible outdoor space. So we wanted to use it as much as possible. We've offered 4 outdoor special events over the summer and the fall. This has included our Chock-a-Block Sidewalk Chalk competition, a summer reading club wrap-up concert on the Hill, an Alberta Culture Days festival attended by Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism Leela Ahir, and our Halloween Bootacular Festival. We saw over 300 participants across these events and demand was really high. We had to limit registration because of COVID restrictions, so we're really excited to repeat some of these events and festivals in a non-COVID year, so people who didn't have an opportunity to be there this year can come in the future. And yes, I did shamelessly put a picture of the mayor and his daughter who attended our Halloween Bootacular on this slide. And I wanted to also thank Councillor Daniluk for attending that event and to all the councillors who came to our Alberta Culture Days event. Thank you so much for that support. I also wanted to just highlight some relationships and partnerships we've been building. We've always worked closely with the Artists Association of Beaumont and the Beaumont Society for the Arts, and we will continue to do so. I'm also excited to do some more work with the Youth Centre and with FCSS and the Leduc and District Food Bank. I am reaching out to schools to see how we can support them as well. Really, the library is a community connector, and we thrive on, and we're really all about fostering relationships, finding partners, and bringing the community together. So every chance we can, we will be out there meeting new people and finding ways we can work together to benefit everyone. A few upcoming projects I wanted to highlight. We are partnering with FCSS on a Chromebook and internet hotspot lending project. This is going to provide computer and internet access to Beaumontonians who aren't internet connected in their homes. And this will be by referral from FCSS. So referred customers will be able to come to the library and check out a Chromebook and a hotspot kit and have access to those technologies at home. We're excited to begin building a small makerspace with some digital conversion equipment and software and hopefully a Cricut maker machine sometime in the new year. And finally, I'm hopeful that we will be able to launch a library bike in 2021 to offer Beaumontonians programs and materials borrowing out in the community. So I wanted to end by talking a little bit about the vision and direction for the library. I'm a new director, and with a new director comes new ideas. And I wanted to take the opportunity to give you a little bit of an idea of my vision for our library and the values that will be driving us forward as an organization. So I believe that libraries at their best are about connection. We're about connecting people to information, to knowledge, to community, to resources, space, technology, to ideas, and to learning. And that's what guides what we do every day, is that building of connections. And as we strive to foster those connections, we're guided by our values. And the first of those is lifelong learning. Beaumont is a city of learners, and the library is where Beaumontonians come to learn. We're here to share knowledge, ideas, skills, and resources that nurture that curiosity and that drive for discovery. We value innovation and creativity. Beaumont is a sandbox city, and the library shares and bolsters that drive to experiment, to be creative, and to push the boundaries of what a modern library can be and can do for its community. We're not afraid to try new things, to spur imagination, and to expand possibilities and inspire creativity. We value collaboration and partnership. I think that's been hopefully obvious throughout, but we really do believe that the best way of serving our community is working with our community. So we are always looking for new partners and collaborators. And finally, we value equity, diversity, and inclusion. We are always striving to provide barrier-free access to space, resources, and services. We amplify marginalized voices, and we strive to ensure that all Beaumontonians have opportunities to see themselves reflected in our resources and services, and to explore cultures, ideas, and experiences that might be unfamiliar to them as well. So thank you guys so much for giving me the chance to speak today about the work the library has been doing during COVID and share a little bit about my vision and our direction moving forward. I'd love to answer any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Laura. We very much appreciate your coming in tonight. And on behalf of my daughter, she had a great time. She made me look
Yay!
maybe a button, which I was going to wear tonight, but it's currently on my coat. So yeah, she had a great time, and I thank you for putting on those events. Culture Days was awesome as well. Open it up to questions from members of council. Ooh, not seeing any. Honestly, thank you very much. There's some great things coming. Oh, Councillor Stout, late to the buzzer. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Less of a great job. Thank you very much for that presentation. Very impressive. A wonderful review of what the library's been doing in these unprecedented and difficult times. So thank you very much for that. And I just wanted to draw council's attention to, probably all aware, but we hired Laura in February. She started on March the 9th, presented to council on March the 10th, and on March the 15th, he closed the library, right? So
It's been a wild ride.
That was one heck of a first week at work, I'm sure. And but I think you've just demonstrated all the things that you were able to do, despite the difficulties of not physically being able to allow access to the building. Wonderful job. Thank you. Greatly appreciated all your efforts, and your staff as well, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Stout.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. And there's some great visionary things happening at the library, and we look forward to continuing to assist you in whatever way we can in the future. So
Awesome.
Thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so that brings us to business items. There are 5 tonight. We'll start off with community grant recommendations. I see Ms. Cuthbert's up.
Hello, good evening, Your Worship and members of council. This evening, we're requesting your decision to award funding as per the grant committee recommendation. The community grant program is to fund one-time projects and initiatives. This includes operating expenses for organizations in their development stages, events that are primarily designed to deliver for the general public, significantly contribute to the local economy, and promote volunteerism. For the October 1st, 2020 intake, administration received 4 applications from various organizations within Beaumont for a total of $31,733.11. The Grant Funding Advisory Committee met individually and collectively to evaluate each of the applications according to council's approved eligibility requirements. Funding recommendations were determined as per the ranking criteria, with overall ranking summarized in attachment 1. We are requesting council approve funding allocation recommendations by the Beaumont Grant Funding Advisory Committee, or that council direct administration on how they wish to proceed. With us tonight, we have Ambro Rosbor, co-chair for the grant committee, for specific questions about funding recommendations.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate you both being here tonight. Going through applications and awarding money is never an easy task, and so we do thank the grants committee for all your hard work in getting this information into us. Is there a member of council that is willing to move the recommendation that council award the following current grants as recommended by the Beaumont Grant Funding Advisory Committee? Grant number 1 to the Beaumont Amateur Hockey Association for rink divider boards for $3,873.11. Grant 2, Empowering Women Entrepreneurs Beaumont Night Market, $7,500. Grant 3, Beaumont Nisku Christmas Elves 2020 Hamper Campaign for $9,000. Driving Happiness Community Pandemic Response for $4,000, for a grand total of $24,373.11. Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Is there questions for the presenters or discussion on the motion? All right, so seeing none, I guess we'll call the vote. All those in favor? There we go. And that carries unanimously. So, thank you very much for being here, even though there wasn't too many questions, but we appreciate, once again, we appreciate all the hard work, and look forward to the next intake in spring. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Have a great meeting.
Which brings us to item 8B, Edmonton Health City collaboration and endorsement. Who from administration? He's coming. Okay. Mr. Mack and team.
Thank you.
Oh, and Mr. Joseph. Pleased to have you in chambers tonight. So the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mayor Stewart, for having us this evening. This is an exciting announcement, or I say item that we look forward to bringing council. As you know, we've been working to build stronger regional relationships and partnerships and collaborations that obviously directly align with where council's vision is from a strategic plan, but also I think in long term will build a lot of benefits not only for our citizens, but also economically. And so tonight we're here to bring forward a new exciting MOU that we've finalized actually a little bit ago with Health City, but tonight we're bringing it forward to council for your review, your endorsement, hopefully. And we also have Reg Joseph here to share a bit more about what Health City is and the potential of this collaboration. So I'm going to share my screen right now. We have a couple slides that do speak to the relationship, and then I will introduce Mr. Joseph. And you can see the intro slide.
Yeah, we got you.
Perfect, thank you. So tonight, folks, I'd like to, council, I'd like to introduce Reg Joseph. He is the CEO of Health City, and he's been working very closely with us as we've developed this MOU, and from the vision all the way through to where we are today in this this document in front of you. I would just like to also just take a minute. Your team has been great, Reg, to work with, and on our side, planning team has been phenomenal, working with Tika and others just to help bring this to fruition. So I'll turn it over to Reg to introduce.
Thanks very much, Rob. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep, we got you. Great.
Good. Thanks very much for this opportunity. Look, I'd like to take a moment just to introduce you a little bit to Health City and chat about the opportunity that Rob was speaking to. A few seconds on Health City. One thing I'd like to mention to all of you that I think you're all aware is, you know, from a health perspective in Canada, we're starting to hit the wall on a number of fronts. Our costs keep going up within the provinces. As many of you know, provincial budgets on healthcare in many provinces are reaching close to 50%. Our outcomes across the nation, Alberta included, are actually not increasing, and yet our costs keep going up. That said, there is a transformation that's happening in the health sector. The same transformation that we're all witnessing in media, transportation, even banking. That same level of transformation is happening in health as well. But it's happening more in other jurisdictions, more so than in Canada. And one of the reasons for that is that our health systems tend to be slow adopters of new innovations. And so that's one of the areas that Health City is really focusing on. The areas that health is really starting to move in around the world are areas like artificial intelligence and machine learning, augmented and virtual reality, virtual care, and the Internet of Things are all major platforms that are transforming health today. We believe in Alberta, we have a lot of those strengths, and we already have companies that are producing solutions and selling solutions around the world using those platforms on health. And so our fundamental thesis is that we can not only improve Canada's health outcomes, but we can also drive economic development. And that's why we're looking to really seek with transformational projects and groups like Beaumont. A couple of projects that we've worked on just very quickly. We've launched home health monitoring in central zone of Alberta, virtual care in long-term care facilities, synthetic data is a new project that we've launched here in Alberta. And for many of these are firsts in Canada. They've never been done anywhere else in the Canadian region, and they've been done here in Alberta. And so there's an opportunity for Alberta to move forward and be a bit of an exemplar for the rest of the nation on some of these areas. And so in short, we're really excited to partner with Beaumont. I think there's an opportunity for Beaumont to partner with what Health City has done in terms of some of the transformational projects that we have done in Alberta and are now starting to do in other regions of Canada. We are excited to partner with a community that is forward thinking, it's highly educated, and looking to be a leader in Canada, particularly as you start looking at the 10G platform. While I know that the 10G platform will enable a number of sectors, Health City is pretty excited about the health side of those opportunities. And we believe that a lot of the projects that we're currently working on and many new ones that we're envisioning, Beaumont would be well positioned to drive. And so we see the Beaumont community really as an opportunity to be a sandbox for the rest of Canada, not only in health, but in many other sectors. And so I'll leave it at that. Questions. And Rob, I don't know if you feel like there's anything that I've missed. I'm happy to add in.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Reg. What I might do for council, we've just got a couple of more slides that sort of speak to our vision behind this agreement and some of the directions out of it. And then I would be happy to take any questions from council. But as Reg just mentioned, Beaumont is becoming known as a bit of a sandbox city, that innovation hub to nurture ideas and entrepreneurship and be that springboard for innovators. And again, Health City's vision as well is very similar. And the vision of this MOU, it's to explore opportunities to share our respective strengths and experiences as organizations and the technologies, methodologies, and resources, and bring them all together in the place where we can work together. And to Reg's point is actually for the benefit actually for Canada and Alberta to showcase the talent that we have, but also hopefully get us caught up to where a lot of other jurisdictions in the world are. And Beaumont can help play a role with this. So our shared goals in doing this MOU were really to drive solutions that support a healthy community, anchor a port for health innovators that brings big ideas together. So be that place, that connection place. Make care accessible to everyone, explore opportunities to improve the quality of life, address gaps in the current healthcare model, and then facilitate healthy lifestyles at all stages of life and abilities. And the final objectives is out of this collaboration and going forward, we are already in some high-level discussions. I'm looking forward to learning more now if we can move this forward this evening. But we're looking to foster collaborative projects between Beaumont and Health City, creating a framework for long-term partnerships between us, seeking out new partners that share this common vision that's set out in this MOU, and to develop projects and initiatives that promote our shared goals as we've just listed. So this is the start of what we hope is to be a very long and beneficial relationship for everyone involved. And I think it's an opportunity for council as well to look at a new and alternative way to provide healthcare options and be that place to bring new advanced healthcare initiatives to our citizens. So at this point, I turn to council if there's any questions or comments.
I do appreciate the presentation tonight, and thank you, Mr. Joseph, for coming in. I've had some great conversations with yourself and Health City teams, or your team members, and you have a very visionary organization, and that's the type of thing that Beaumont loves to partner with as we head into that sandbox city mode and mentality. As we open up discussion, I'm going to move that council endorse the proposed collaboration between the City of Beaumont and the not-for-profit corporation of Edmonton Health City. And I will open it up for discussion and questions from members of council. Councilor Markgraf-Swain.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Mackin, for presenting, and welcome, Mr. Joseph, tonight. Before I dive into the MOU, maybe just a couple of questions up front about your organization, just to help me get a better sense of who you are. So off the top, are you involved with Connect Care and that piece?
So we're involved indirectly in the sense that Health City itself is not a care provider, but we do partner with care providers. And so through our relationship with Alberta Health Services and through our relationship with the PCNs that we already have, we have projects that we'll be plugging into Connect Care. So in that area, we are connected.
follow
don't know
up?
if I- Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. I guess maybe if provide a bit more clarification around some of the projects. So you said that you're not direct healthcare providers. I get that. You talk about collaborative projects. Can you just give us a couple of or an example of what you mean by that, just to help me wrap my mind around what your organization does versus delivering the healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me provide a couple of quick examples for you. So one example is working with First Nations communities just out west of Edmonton. We're working with Westview PCN, and we're working with Alexis First Nation and Paul First Nation. And meeting a challenge in those communities where they're looking to do early diagnosis of something called hip dysplasia in the First Nations community, where there's a high incidence rate. And if detected early, there's preventative interventions that you can take. But the challenge is being able to detect early and getting children at a very early stage to a diagnostic center is sometimes challenging. So what we've done is we partnered up, for example, with a local artificial intelligence company who specializes in the area of diagnostic imaging. We've been able to tie that technology to a handheld ultrasound, and we're now actively screening individuals in those two First Nations communities and doing prevention, if you will, on that particular disease indication. So on the health side, there's that win. Secondly, though, Edmonton company, Meadow AI, recently secured FDA clearance for its product, partly based on the trials that we've helped them with. They've got 3 more products that they're looking to launch, and they want to develop and scale them all here in Alberta and remain in Alberta, even though they now currently have FDA approval and are looking to export to the US market. That's one example. Another example, very quickly, in the central zone, there is a high rate, the highest rate in Alberta of obesity, diabetes, as well as COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and mainly due to the high rates of smoking. And one of the challenges that clinicians are trying to address is reaching their patients in rural and remote communities. And so particularly during pandemic and not wanting seniors to come into clinic to expose themselves, looking for ways to extend their reach. And so we deployed with partners, a couple of multinationals, a couple of local companies, home health monitoring solutions, so that the patients can actually monitor themselves and be active participants in the self-management of their disease. What's interesting though, even though they have their own devices and are self-managing, their interaction with their clinicians, nurses, and physicians have actually gone up because they do not have to come into clinic. Now their communication is via phone or via a virtual care type solution, and their interactions have actually gone up. On the economic development side, it's enabling now multiple Canadian companies to tap in with their home health monitoring solutions, because the pathway that we've created is not specific for those indications that I mentioned. The pathway we've created is for all indications and for all modalities. And so there's that economic engine as well where we can plug in our local companies. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavor. What we do essentially is bring the partners together, bring the funding to the table to enable those projects to move forward.
Thank you. That's a great explanation. I was going to ask about, virtual care and some of the concerns around quality, but it sounds like your organization is more around bringing those partners to the table versus actually delivering it. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
The last question I had for now is just around the confidentiality of information and all that sort of stuff. So where do you get permission from to access this confidential information? How does your organization manage that?
Yeah, no, very good question, very pertinent question. And so in short, to the point that I made earlier, because we're not clinicians ourselves, the stewards of the data, as you know, are the physicians, and that doesn't change. And so in terms of deploying these solutions, we deploy them with clinical support. And so the physicians are there hand in hand working with us. We don't access their data at all. It's the physicians themselves that are using these tools to better drive care. And so the chain of command with respect to data doesn't change at all. All we're doing is adding a layer of technology under the physician's care, if you will.
Great, thank you. That helps me wrap my mind around your organization a bit more. I'll yield the floor, and when we come back, and maybe some specifics to MRU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Lots of information there. Just a simple question off the start. You may have mentioned it, but I missed it. When was Health City formed? How long has Health City been a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, a great question. So Health City was formed about 2.5 years ago, incorporated about a year and a half ago officially. Our Catalyst funding came from the City of Edmonton, where we receive an annual grant of about $1 million a year. We've supplemented that with a variety of sources of funding from other levels of government, philanthropic organizations, as well as industry.
Follow up.
Yeah, follow up. I guess what was and you spoke to it a little bit, but maybe just a real succinct version of what is the vision for Health City? So you talked about bringing parties together, connecting one group with another to find a solution. But what's the vision beyond that? Where do you go?
Yeah, no, great question. Succinctly, if I could say it like this, look, we're looking to transform health because our health delivery in this nation needs to change and needs to modernize. And in doing so, I think we can also drive economic development because we have the companies and technologies here to be able to drive health forward. Those companies can then leverage what they're doing here regionally to global markets and make them scalable, larger scalable companies. So it's that dual mandate of health transformation and economic development.
One more, and then I'll cede for now.
Sure.
So in the COVID world that we're living in right now, where's Health City finding the potential opportunities? Obviously, you've done some networking before the COVID pandemic, but you got to continue flipping the box over. And how are you able to do that right now in this current environment?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question. And actually, the pandemic has actually opened up numerous opportunities for us. So some of the challenges that we're trying to address right now are actually pandemic driven. The case that I briefly spoke about with respect to the Central Zone in terms of chronic disease management for the patients in Central Zone, what really drove that was preventing individuals from coming into clinic and unnecessarily getting them exposed. So looking at how do we deploy technology solutions to continue to provide valuable care to those in a scenario where we don't add risk to them by forcing them to come into a clinic, drive in for 2 hours, wait in the clinic for 2 hours and drive back. Is there a better way for us to manage them remotely? And so many of our opportunities are actually opening up as a result of the pandemic, as a result of the health system now willing to consider different ways of doing things that honestly, folks, a year ago, they would not have even considered.
Thank you
very much. Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to our presenter. I appreciate your time this evening. I have one quick question I'd like our presenter to ask, and also Mr. Mackin to answer as well. What do you perceive as being the biggest advantage to Beaumont for this collaboration we're proposing with Health City? Thank you.
Rob, would you like me to go first and then you come in?
Sure, I'll for sure.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. Yeah. So from our perspective, selfishly speaking, I mentioned this earlier in the conversation. I think there's a lot of key facets that Beaumont has in terms of its forward-thinking community. It's in a highly advanced education community with professionals and so forth. But this whole idea of being able to leverage I think the emerging status of Beaumont as sort of a sandbox in Alberta and perhaps even the nation is something that we're really excited to partner with. And so, that's where we find the unique opportunities for Beaumont to try and test new ideas that other communities have been unwilling to. I think Beaumont is well positioned. Secondly, just very quickly, I'll mention most of our partnerships and relationships have been with community-based health organizations like primary care networks and other related types of organizations. We've actually never had an opportunity to partner up with a municipality in this way. And I think it brings a very different perspective to the table when you're dealing with a municipality that's starting to look at saying, okay, how do we deal with some of these challenges going forward? And how do we take a creative approach to doing that? And honestly, I've been really, forgive the term, but jazzed by the interactions that I've had with Rob and his team in terms of the vision that they're putting forward, not only in health, but in the other sectors as well.
Thank you, Reg. And through your worship to Councillor Danlock, I believe it's a bit of a twofold benefit to Beaumont, or where I see this going is first, we know there's some traditional bricks and mortar type healthcare infrastructure that Beaumont does not have. And we all know what that is and what that is expected to be. But I believe if we look forward into the future, by working with a group like Health City, we might be able to get the same, if not better or enhanced delivery to our citizens and opportunity for them to get that healthcare delivery, but in a new and emerging manner. And if we can be that place and make those connections, I think it improves the quality of life. Secondfold, I believe that this also, from an economic development lens, it speaks to our openness to work with innovators, to be that place to connect. And when I say connect, a great example is we actually, Reg came and we introduced him to our primary care doctor in Beaumont and had a great initial meeting. And I think that's the type of connection where I see lights going off. I see ideas that people hadn't thought of before. And I think all of that equates to better healthcare delivery, better sense of community, and economic opportunity as well, potentially.
Councillor Markov-Swain, second set.
Yeah, if no one else is.
No one else is up on the list, no.
Yeah, so first, Rob, thanks for acknowledging the meat and potatoes here. The main healthcare issue that we have in Beaumont is the lack of facilities, and so thank you for acknowledging that. Maybe a more operational question. So if we go forward with this MOU, curious the impact to the City of Beaumont staff. Like, what's our involvement level here? Obviously your organization, Rob, is got a few files that you're working on, and so just curious if what the impact of this partnership would mean to you or to the rest of administration.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Markov-Swain. I believe now, if we formalize this, there'll be an opportunity for all of administration and the organization to get a better understanding. There's an awareness right now, but we all have a role to play in connecting. And so from specifically our department, Councillor Markov-Swain, it's that connection. We've got innovators in our own community that may need a connection back to Health City. So our role is to play that interface, to find the right play. And we've got a team within administration that is our goal. I think you've heard some of when it comes to thinking differently on how we can deliver municipal services, that culture exists, and I think we're all going to own a part of it. So if we're having an aging in place workshop and there's an opportunity to partner and bring something, that's not run by economic development, it's another department. But I think now if we can move this forward, we can definitely do a lot more education, involvement, and get that energy and that interest growing.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I may add, on many of our projects, we bring capacity to the table as well. And so under Rob and Beaumont's leadership, if there's any additional help that our team can provide to move these projects forward, we're more than happy to bring our capacity to the table as well, where it makes sense.
Okay, just a follow-up there. And I hope, Mr. Joseph, you don't take my questions the wrong way. Signing an MOU with this is obviously very serious stuff, and we need to make sure we know who we're in partnership with. So, I'm excited about all these opportunities that Rob brings us. I just like to do my due diligence here. So just wanted to recognize that. But I guess, I've heard a lot of, broad words like collaboration, innovation, connections, etc. I'm still struggling around what this actually means for Beaumont. Is it just a kind of ideas portal where folks are having these conversations? Is there something more tangible that's going to be coming out of it? I don't see any major risks in the MOU, and I like the vision that you mentioned, Mr. Joseph. I just struggle to see, where Beaumont kind of fits into this, if I could ask it that way.
Rob, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
I'll let you go. I think we might be on the same page.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I think Rob brought it up when he was chatting about this whole concept of the lack of bricks and mortar facilities and capacity in Beaumont in terms of healthcare delivery. The thought that we had is, maybe we can skip a level and jump right into other forms of solutions that actually provide better access to patients, better care, without having to sink the capex into those kinds of bricks and mortar clinics. And given some of the projects that we've already deployed, I think learnings from those projects would be translated into looking at unique forms of care delivery in Beaumont.
I think we're on the same page. I think that was our vision and our intent, and there is some projects we've discussed to date. There is not necessarily, unless I'm not aware of a whole schedule of milestones and different ones coming down, but if we can be at least seen as that city that we can be the first to check with, we can see if there's a need in our city. I think it'll actually it'll speed things up and give us more opportunity to provide that service sooner.
And if I just may add, in terms of background information on some of the projects, I know your agenda is going to be very tight tonight, and I don't want to get into too many of them. Rob, you may not know this, but I just sent you an email a little while ago with a fair bit of detail on a number of the projects that Health City has deployed, as well as a fair bit of background on those projects. And so I think having a look at some of that background information will also give you a good sense of what we've already done and how those may translate into opportunities here in Beaumont.
Definitely, I will definitely share that. Thank you.
Yeah, and your website has a lot of great information about the history there, so I certainly appreciate that. In general, I'm very supportive of this. I really appreciate Mr. Joseph, you going through and answering a lot of my questions here. My last question is just more around the mechanics. So if we move forward with this, is there I don't want to say reporting back into council, because then my CAO will kick me, but is there some way how do we keep that communication going back and forth so that we don't just sign an MOU and then 2 years later you come back up and ask to renew it? What's that piece where council stays at a high level involved?
Through your worship to Councillor Moncaf-Swain, I believe that is one of the things that we didn't define just yet, but we know a reporting of some sort back. So it might be project specific if it's got a large magnitude, but I can, on behalf of myself, commit to bring at least a summary of annually of in writing of what we have done and what this collaboration's brought. As you can see, we did put a timeline on it because we don't know what the future holds, but I think by doing that as well, checkpoint.
Yeah, and our team is more than happy to support Rob in terms of any reporting to council. If you'd like regular reporting on a quarterly basis, on a per project basis, more than happy to oblige like we have tonight.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate your willingness to do that. Councillor Van Newkirk, final thoughts before we call the question?
Yeah, thank you. One of those basic questions I should have asked at the beginning, but what is Health City's actual growth model? Like, is your goal to get out there and sign as many MOUs as possible? Is it to find strategic partners? And, when you get those MOUs in place and when you find those strategic partners, how do you gauge to make sure that Health City has enough resources to make good on the MOUs, partnerships that you have put into place? Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. Thank you very much. Absolutely. We're on the second half of that. We look at our MOUs very seriously and very strategically. Our mandate, as I very high level expressed to you, is something that our board looks at and guides us on. And so we have very specific goals that we're trying to achieve in terms of health transformation and economic growth, economic development. And so, on that front, that's where the organization is really focused. Your second question in terms of resources and our ability to deliver, we do these on a project by project basis. And what we've done for all of our projects right now has been able to secure funding for all those projects through various sources. As I mentioned before, the funding that comes in for those projects come in from other levels of government, in this case, provincial and federal, as well as philanthropic relationships that we have, as well as industry. So we wouldn't look to execute on a project. The way we would do it is Rob and I would sit down to see, do we have the capacity and resources to execute on this project? And we wouldn't say go on any project until we know that we see a clear path to doing that.
Sounds good. And on the resourcing front, how big of an organization is Health City? Are we talking 5 employees, 50 employees?
Yeah, we're small. We're 5 plus a number of contractors. So relatively small, and we bring in contractors on an as needed basis in terms of helping to manage the projects that we deploy.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. Appreciate your coming and presenting tonight. It's an exciting opportunity, and I look forward to it moving forward, should the vote be successful. So at this point, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And so once again, I appreciate it. Look forward to signing the MOU and moving forward on collaborating in some Health City initiatives. Appreciate it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Council and Your Worship, for the time this evening. Pleasure, and looking forward to working with you all.
All right.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you very much. All right, as we've been sitting for now an hour and 15, we'll take a quick 5 before we tackle the rest of the agenda. Just as we get going, I'd just like to remind council that tonight we're not approving this budget tonight. It's an introduction, so we're not going to be debating individual line items or individual budget items. Tonight's to talk about process and clarifications on that as we move through this process for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. So we'll turn it over to administration and let's see the highlights. Mr. Dollar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Administration is pleased to present the proposed 2021 operating and capital budgets this evening. These budgets work together as an overall commitment to invest in and maintain the programs, services, and infrastructure for the citizens of Beaumont. Administration believes these proposed budgets deliver on council's strategic plan, goals of good governance, building and maintaining infrastructure, and achieving operational efficiencies. The proposed budgets before council have been reviewed by senior leadership team and have been considered in the context of the current economic environment and a projected 2021 consumer price index for the Edmonton Metro region of 1.8%. What these proposed budgets do not reflect is any impact of the COVID-19 impact. Administration's belief is that the budgets need to be based on normal operations, and any future impact from COVID-19 will be managed similar to how it has been managed through 2020. The proposed budget attempts to fund growth in services and programs to meet the needs of a growing population and advance council's strategic plan and priorities, while keeping taxes affordable and user fees reasonable. To that end, administration has proposed a 2021 operating budget with a 1.5% tax increase. This is less than the projected CPI, and it is the lowest tax increase in at least the previous 7 years. This rate increase has been achieved by identifying ways to operate more efficiently in order to maintain existing services and to cover increases in growth to services with growth in revenue. To be clear, what is driving the proposed property tax increase is 2 items. The first is an increase to the RCMP contract that incorporates an additional member. And the second is an impact from bringing the full cost of transit service onto the tax levy. As in previous years, this cost was being partially funded through reserve transfers. In addition, administration has included a few service enhancements in the 1.5% increase. These enhancements will be discussed in a future slide. As previously mentioned, included in the 1.5% tax increase are a number of items that result in a change to service. Sorry, let me back up. As shown on page 4 of the budget document, the impact of a proposed 1.5% tax rate increase on a home valued at $428,000 is estimated to be an additional $44 for the year. There are also proposed increases for utility services that would result in an additional increase of $56 for the year. As previously mentioned, included in the 1.5% tax increase are a number of items that result in a change to service. The items related to growth and service are listed at the top of the slide and have been paid for through the additional revenue that is expected from the full operation of the BSRC and from an increase to the assessment base. The items under service enhancement are ones proposed by administration. The first 2 items do not require any additional funding from taxation revenue, and so are shown as no additional cost. The health and safety specialist is a position administration is proposing to be added to assist in the creation and implementation of the health and safety program across the organization, and is expected to help achieve the legislative requirements related to providing a healthy and safe work environment. Further information on these initiatives can be found in the budget document. In an effort to limit the tax increase, very few service enhancements have been included for council consideration. The only service change included in the budget document is unfunded and therefore not included in the proposed 1.5% tax increase is an item for 3 additional firefighters. Administration did review and evaluate this service change and determined others were a higher priority at this time. Once again, further detail on the unfunded service enhancement has also been included in the budget document and can be found on page 20. Switching focus to the capital budget, the proposed budget is a mix of maintaining the infrastructure we have and building the infrastructure we need, all in benefit of the citizens of Beaumont. The total proposed capital budget for 2021 is $18.2 million. Administration believes the proposed capital program delivers on balancing limited resources with maintaining the city's existing infrastructure and providing the community with additional infrastructure to keep up with the pace of growth. Similar to the operating budget, there are some capital projects that have not been proposed for funding. Further information on the projects listed on the slide have also been included in the budget document for council's review and consideration. Being accountable for the effective and efficient use of municipal funds is important to administration. Administration strives to continually improve service delivery and efficiency through organizational and process review and change. The city's approach to budgeting is also undergoing an evolution from a practice of incrementing the current budgets without much questioning to internal reviews of all requests for budget increases and a rationalization of existing budget amounts. In addition, administration is constantly looking for innovative service delivery alternatives that can provide a positive benefit to citizens and reduce the cost of services. Overall, the city has a great foundation of services, programs, and infrastructure funded through the base budget. However, it is important to continually assess the relevancy and efficiency of this foundation to ensure that the city's scarce resources are put to optimal use. In developing the proposed 2021 budget, a number of initiatives have been incorporated that have allowed administration to manage costs and maintain existing service and service levels without any additional support from the property tax rate. A summary of these initiatives can be found on page 8 of the budget document. For the 2021 budget process, administration did employ a different approach to engaging with citizens and external groups within the city. The overall approach focused on informing and building awareness, but specific objectives of the engagement plan included improving the transparency and public understanding of the budget, creating new and different opportunities to learn about the budget, and adding opportunities for the public to provide input on the budget. The first part of the engagement plan began on September 17th with the launch of an online survey tool. The high-level results from the survey are displayed on the slide and show what services respondents believe could be decreased and which they felt could be increased. From a revenue perspective, the results also provided administration with insight on how many respondents would prefer a property tax decrease or increase, and or an increase or decrease to user fees. Today's presentation is the kickoff to the council portion of the 2021 budget process. Over the next week, council will have an opportunity to ask administration specific questions on proposed budgets, and any questions members of council may have should be submitted directly to the executive assistant for mayor and council. Council will have until November 17th to submit questions, at which point administration will work on compiling the responses and provide these back to council on November 24th. In addition, at the November 24th City Council meeting, members of the public have an opportunity to register to speak directly to council regarding any issues or initiatives on the 2021 budget they wish to raise. These activities will lead into council deliberations, which have been scheduled for November 26th, 27th, and 28th. These meetings are intended to allow members of council to table, discuss, and debate motions to amend the proposed budget. It is expected that at the end of the November 28 meeting, council will have a budget that the majority believe will achieve the priorities for 2021. Finally, based on the approved amendments from the budget deliberations, administration will bring an updated budget for council approval at the December 8th meeting. Thank you for your time and attention. And at this time, we would be happy to answer any questions council may have on any of the information presented here this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dollar. It's had a chance to review the document on a first pass, and it's a fabulous budget document. A lot of work has obviously gone into it, and I look forward to diving down into it over the next couple of weeks. Quick question from a process perspective. There's an opportunity for council to submit questions. Is there an opportunity for the public to submit questions and then have those answers compiled and presented to council as part of feedback as well, or no?
There isn't any specific process for members of the public to submit questions. What I would offer is any questions from the public can be directed to any member of council, which can then be relayed through to administration for us to provide a response back. Again, at the November 24th council meeting is when we would hope to have those responses provided.
Okay, fair enough. We can route public questions through council members. That's awesome. Is there any questions about process and what the next steps are and where we're headed from members of council? Councillor Monkoff-Swain?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And similar line of thinking, if I saw that correctly, the November 24th, I want to say, public input, thank you. Public input on proposed budget. And so we say council chambers up there. Now, just recognizing the time we're in, and I think I asked this before, and similar to what the mayor asked here, are there other avenues that we're going to seek input? I recognize we're going to put this budget up online. Is there any other way that we can, that administration is proposing to engage the citizens? Previously we had open houses, etc. Recognize we can't do that. So just curious, other than saying show up on November 24th and come and present in council, is there any other way that we're trying to encourage or obtain feedback from residents?
There's been nothing outlined in the process, Councillor Monkoff-Swain. And certainly there is nothing that we've said that would suggest that they couldn't be through Zoom as well on November 24th. So it's not necessarily a matter of coming directly to council chambers. So we can make that part clear. Again, we've set up the process with basically using this survey tool to collect some feedback from the public, as well as the November 24th meeting, and not to preclude kind of the typical avenues that members of the public may use in the past, which would be, again, contacting any member of council directly with any issues or concerns that they may have. But other than those avenues, we have not made a suggestion for any other opportunities for the public to provide input.
Okay, just a quick follow-up and maybe a suggestion or a recommendation. So I think, the budget, this is fourth one going through it. So I think, up here, we're more familiar with it than the average resident would be. And while, an open house style is obviously not achievable, what was there was those poster boards, for lack of a better term, or that summary information. And so I just think asking residents to go through and dive into this budget, and I know there are several that are interested in it, but maybe don't have time to read the whole thing word for word. Maybe to consider, summarizing what we would normally put up in poster boards and just summarizing it and putting it up online next to the budget. So if you want to read the full thing, here it is. Here's the 10 poster boards that summarize the budget. I won't sign you up for a video or anything like that, but just figure out ways on how we can communicate this better. And we will do our own job and our own unique way of communicating with residents. I think you're picking up what I'm putting down here. I just think we need to summarize this somehow, put it up online so that someone can go through and get a better understanding it and then dive into it if they want to.
And I think Mike B will probably jump in here, but I did neglect to mention that we are looking at providing some content on the website that will provide some of that summary information, along with the link to the bigger budget document.
Yes, just to add on to what Mr. Dowler said, that is exactly the plan that on Thursday we will be putting up more high-level information about the budget, the highlights, some of the ins and outs, and just so that residents don't have to delve into a 100-page financial document, so that they can get a high-level understanding. But if they choose, they can also go into that. So you can look forward to that coming towards the end of the week, as well as some social media posts and media around that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. And in general, I'm really happy with the process that's been laid out. It's been very clear, methodical throughout, giving us plenty of heads up and a chance to read through this document. So great job on the process. We'll chat when we get to the details. Thank you.
Councillor Stowe.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, just a quick question about the online survey that was done, where residents were given the opportunity to make choices about what services they felt required more or less financial support. It's on page 6. What I wanted to ask was, what was the total number of respondents to that survey? Do we know, or is there a way we can find out?
So I believe the total number was 37.
Thank you.
There was a bit of a comment though about unique responses. So IP addresses, there may have been some duplicates in the 37. And so if you took those out of the mix, there may have been 34. Or sorry, I shouldn't say may have been. There were 34, I believe. Now, the fact that there was duplicate IP addresses doesn't necessarily mean, you know, the same individual responded multiple times. It could have been different members of the household. So
yes,
depending on your perspective, 37 or 34.
So 37 or 34?
37 respondents.
And 34 unique IP addresses?
Yes.
Super, thank you. Do you?
Follow up? Yeah, go ahead.
How does it, do we have any feel for how that would compare with the number of people who, for instance, showed up at one of the budget open houses that Councillor Monkoff-Swain was discussing earlier?
I would suggest that the 37 unique responses are probably more than what would typically show up at an open house. Now, my experience with open houses in Beaumont has been 1 year, and so not an extensive length of time by any means. But it feels like there's more responses in the 37, and quite frankly, probably better information for us within the survey than at the open houses.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because survey runs, it's open for longer, and you don't have to drive anywhere or go anything. You can sit in the comfort of your own home and do it. So it's easier for people as well. Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through yourself to administration, just I'm going to keep going on the public engagement opportunity idea again here. I guess a question for Mr. Berezowski. The 2021 budget information that you said was going to be popped up on the website. In years past, there's been a very succinct and distinct button on the front of the page that says 2021 budget. I'm assuming that we're going to be doing something similar. It'll be easy for residents to go to the web page, click the button on the front page, not have to dig, and be brought to the information. Is that a correct assumption?
That's correct. And it's also going to have what's called a vanity URL. It's a shortened URL that's easy for advertising to use too. So it's very simple for residents to find.
Yeah, and then also going down that path of citizen engagement again, is there any reason that on that page there couldn't be a button or a way for citizens to provide feedback? You know, route that feedback through something to somewhere. You know, there are residents who are going to come through council as suggested with their concerns, but you know, some people still aren't as comfortable doing that at times. So just, you know, take it or leave it, another suggestion.
We'll take that under advisement. Thank you very much, Councillor.
And secondary, so long as COVID allows us to keep facilities open, I wonder if there isn't an opportunity to have poster boards placed in lobby. You know, the traffic going through the Ken Nickel, traffic going through the BSRC, you know, the poster boards may not need to be manned at all, but information opportunities might exist. So just another possibility for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. All right, seeing no further requests to speak, so we'll move that council accept the 2021 operating budget as outlined in attachment 1, and that the capital budget and the utility operating budget be accepted as information. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, so that brings us to notice of motion from Councillor Barnhart. So we will let Ms. Winter introduce it, and then Councillor Barnhart, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to members of the public and council. In accordance with the meeting procedures bylaw, once a notice of motion is made, it will be placed on the next regular council meeting agenda in which the elected official who made the notice of motion is present. At the October 27th, 2020 council meeting, Councillor Barnhart made the following notice of motion. that council formally endorse the appointment of a counselor as a representative to the Alberta Bilingual Municipalities Association, and that this appointment be added to the list of appointments made yearly at council's organizational meeting. This evening, council is looking for direction on how council wishes to proceed. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Winter, as well. This item is relatively simple, Council. The City of Beaumont has been a member municipality since 2010 of the organization that was first formed and called Concerto. It's now been named the Alberta Bilingual Municipalities Association, or ABMA. The 4 pillars of the organization fit very well with our strategic plan. Just to read them quickly, one is tourism development. The second is attraction of Francophone bilingual business investment. The third is recruitment and employability. And the fourth is sustainable development and green energy projects. The vision of this organization is to unite municipalities by promoting their prosperity through bilingualism. And I would suggest strongly that the place to ensure that our membership continues is by adding it to the list of councillor appointments conducted at our annual organizational meeting of council. And with that, I will put that motion on the floor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you for moving that council formally endorse the appointment of a councillor as representative to the Alberta Bilingual Municipalities Association, and that this appointment be added to the list of appointments made yearly at council's organizational meeting. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? That carries unanimously. A quick question for Ms. Winter. Now that we've formally added this, do we need to formally appoint Councillor Barnhart, who has been sitting on that committee for council to date, to make that official?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. Yes, I would recommend that council makes a motion this evening to put Councillor Barnhart continue to serve on the board. Thank you.
Okay, so moved that Councillor Barnhart continue to represent the City of Beaumont on the Alberta Bilingual Municipalities Association. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously, and thank you very much, Councillor Barnhart, for representing us at that association. It's it's doing some great work for us. All right, so that brings us to item 8E, Council Policy C41, Conversion Therapy Prohibition Policy. As council remembers, we did debate this at length, and it's gone back and come back with some revisions that hopefully council will find appropriate, and we can finish up this piece of business this evening. Who from administration will speak?
I'm prepared to speak to this on behalf of administration, and so we just have a brief kind of outline of what brought us to this point. And thank you very much to council. We'll provide this presentation and then be open to questions after this point. This presentation will speak to both the policy and the bylaw. However, we can run over some of the more particular details of each when we go through each agenda item. So just to provide a timeline of the events the process leading up to this point, on September 15th, Committee of the Whole received a report from administration regarding conversion therapy, and council directed administration to develop a standalone conversion therapy prohibition bylaw and a council policy in opposition of conversion therapy. On October 1st, the federal government reintroduced legislation to criminalize the practice of conversion therapy related conduct in Canada. And so it is the municipality's understanding at this point that the changes presented by the federal government through this legislation would not preclude the municipality from moving forward with this policy and bylaw, as we discussed in our last meeting on October 27th. And so at that October 27th council meeting, administration brought forward the draft bylaw and policy at that point, and council deferred first reading on both of these items and directed administration to review the policy and bylaw and engage with academics in this area. And so on October 28th, Administration met with an academic who works very closely in this area, specifically Dr. Christopher Wells of MacEwan University, who's the Canada Research Chair for the Public Understanding of Sexual and Gender Minority Youth. And so this discussion was very informative. We identified, administration discussed opportunities with Dr. Christopher Wells, and we identified ways to use the most current definitions while also ensuring that both the policy and the bylaw identified within their structure the harms associated with the practice of conversion therapy, and ensuring that administration can be supported by resources that would underpin enforcement of both the policy and bylaw. And so we're bringing forward both the policy and bylaw today, and we are confident that through passing both the updated bylaw and policy, the City of Beaumont will have one of the most progressive and effective frameworks to prohibit the harmful and illegitimate practice of conversion therapy in Alberta. And so that outlines the process. And just for the policy, just to quickly recount, the policy explicitly states that the City of Beaumont is in opposition to and condemns the use of conversion therapy. The policy provides additional measures to reflect the municipality's official position and restricts the use of city resources for funding to organizations that practice and promote this practice. And so administration recommends that council approve council policy C41, opposition to conversion therapy conversion therapy prohibition policy, as presented in attachment 1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rates. Appreciate your presentation this evening. Is there a member of council willing to move the recommendation that council approve council policy C41, conversion therapy prohibition policy, as presented in attachment 1? Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
I'd like to move that motion.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. All right, seeing none, we will call the question. Councillor Van, oh, there it is. And that carries unanimously. Appreciate that. Which concludes our business items this evening and brings us to item 9A, bylaw 98920, conversion therapy prohibition bylaw, first reading. Again.
Yes, sorry, I will not go through the timeline and process leading up to this point. I'll just quickly make clear that this bylaw prohibits the practice of conversion therapy and enforces penalties for advertising or offering conversion therapy services. And the bylaw reflects the considerations outlined by administration in previous reports, and that it defines the purpose and effect of the bylaw clearly. Specifically, we've added an amendment to the preamble to make this clearer regarding the harms associated. And then also focuses on defining conversion therapy narrowly and prohibits its practice and advertisement. And so administration recommends that council give first reading to bylaw 989-20, prohibition of conversion therapy.
Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
I'll move that first reading.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
Yeah, thank you. And we called the question earlier a bit quickly, so I didn't really get a chance to speak, but that was my fault, not yours. So initially, just a couple of thanks. So thanks to administration for going back and checking and updating that definition. I appreciate where we're at, where we've landed here. You're absolutely right. We have one of, if not the strongest policies here, as well as a bylaw, and so just really leading in from a municipality standpoint. I'd also like to thank Dr. Chris Wells for all his support through this process, through to administration, and getting us to this point. So I am supportive of this, and I'd like to see if we can get all three tonight, but we'll see where that goes.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. And Councillor Monkoff-Swain was thinking the same way I was. This is not coming back for a public hearing. We've debated this at length over the last 2 weeks, or at the last council meeting. So I'm wondering if there's a member of council willing to move second reading and see if we can't finish this up tonight. Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
So moved.
So moved. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor for second reading? That carries unanimously. At this time, I'd like to move that council give unanimous consent to move to third reading of bylaw 989-20, conversion therapy prohibition bylaw. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the question. And that carries unanimously. And therefore, is there a member of council willing to move third reading? Councillor Van Newkirk, just for a change.
So moved.
All those in discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, council. That was a hard one discussion, and I'm glad that we could get it across the finish line this evening. Which brings us to item 10, councillor inquiries and reports. So we'll start with reports and then move to questions for administration. This is a report. So Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you very much. In not in anticipation, I didn't know this was coming, but I received in the mail the other day from the ABMA a plaque, which I gave to the mayor, which certifies our membership in the ABMA. So thankfully, we're staying members. That could have been a little awkward.
Yeah, could have been.
So we can post that. And then the other piece is that they provided us with a copy of the strategic planning document, which was very well done. I participated in that process along with Emily Sangster from the administration. There's one in French, one in English. It's very easy read, very well laid out. So I'll ask for the administration to send it out to council with correspondence, because I think it's good to read.
No, appreciate that, and we'll make sure that goes out in the correspondence package. And like I say, that organization does some great work, and I'm still happy that we can be a part of it. Is there another member of council wishing to make a statement this evening? No? Okay, so let's open it up for questions for admin, and I'll start off. I got one. Actually, I was talking to a resident and just wondering what the plans are for skating on Four Seasons Lake and perhaps the skating path in the Lions Park. We haven't had that for a couple of years, and so just sort of wanted to get an update on that.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I wasn't able to connect with Recreation, so I can follow up with you once I get that information.
Appreciate that. It's just in the era of COVID, I think outdoor activities are going to be paramount to what we're going to be able to do this winter. So yeah, if you can get it back to us, that'd be great. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to make a comment or a question or suggestion, maybe all three of them, to administration and the mayor around some of the communications that we've been doing weekly, through the mayor's column in the paper, through the mayor's videos, and given the sharp rise in the COVID numbers in our region and having very unfortunately experienced yet another death in Beaumont, suggestion might be to start looking for more of a regional message. Perhaps the mayor might consider teaming up with other regional mayors to make the pleas to the public to adhere to some of the guidelines and that are being presented by Dr. Dina Hinshaw. Just a suggestion. I know there's positives and negatives to all the different types of messaging that come out there, but it might benefit from Leduc County and Beaumont standing together to put a communication out there. So again, that's just a suggestion, and I'll leave it to the communications team, administration, and the mayor to decide if that's a route to go or not. So just wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I have no problem with that. I'll coordinate with Mike and check with my fellow mayors and see if they'd be willing to do something like that. We'll let you know. Are there any further questions for administration? Councillor Hendricks, followed by Councillor Moncuswain.
Thank you. Program, if there's any update on the ask from the Shinny hockey people regarding access to the space.
Good question.
Now, if I recall, we had responded to that, and the rec folks were going to reach out to the Shinny. It's not just a matter of leaving a set of keys, so they are following up. I'll follow up by email.
Okay. Councillor Moncuswain.
Yeah, I'll just throw my weight behind Councillor Van Newkirk's suggestion there. the cases are sharply rising. It's not getting better. And would agree with a more direct message. My comment, maybe not a question, but just for administration, just recognizing that we had quite a lot of snow over the last few days here, and I've received quite a lot of feedback, really positive feedback for the operations staff who have been out there and working their butts off to get it done. So please pass on the thanks, and we've got 6 months ahead of us of this, but great start for operations staff for getting going here, and looking forward to diving into some service level conversations around it. So just a thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had 4 days of snow. It feels like 6 months. Yeah, further following on comments surrounding the sharp rise in cases and the additional health measures that have been going on. Seeing no further requests to speak, I do have a quick question for members of council. Perhaps we need to be taking a leadership role and rolling back our in-person meetings back to virtual to showcase that we should not be gathering in public or gathering. So just looking for some feedback from members of council. Would you be supportive of going back to virtual meetings for the time being until the case numbers, the curve bends again? Councilor McGowan-Swain.
So let me start off by saying, I feel safe here, and the measures that we've got up here, and the checklist that we go through before we start up, and the dividers and the masks, etc. I personally would find it challenging to go through a budget workshop virtually. So if there is a need to create a different space or a different environment, I could go that way. But personally, a regular council meeting, that makes sense to me. But a budget workshop, you need to roll your sleeves up, dive into it, and read the room. Very, very hard to do remotely. Like I said, I think the mechanisms that we've got in place to protect us are there. So those will be my initial comments, having given 12 seconds to think about it.
Yeah, no, I do agree. It is harder to do things virtually than it is in person, and maybe we might need to think of a different venue for that. But I still think setting the example and rolling back is the way to go. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the level of engagement, the way we were able to operationalize the virtual meetings, the level of engagement we were able to get amongst each other continually improved and was tremendously functional in the virtual meeting setup that we did. So, personally, I think that that suggestion that you've made is amicable. What I would say though is, I hadn't really considered in the short term I've thought about it, what Councillor Monkoff-Swain brought up around the budget workshop. So it may be prudent to, like he suggested, find a bigger space, separate, get a table a piece going, in CCBCC or something like that, and spread out so we can actually roll up the sleeves. So those would be my thoughts.
Okay, we'll look at it. Councillor Danlock.
Your worship, for the chance to speak on this issue. I think it read my mind too about the idea of potentially going back to our Zoom meetings, council meetings and COW meetings on Tuesdays, virtual again. I could be comfortable with that, but I do agree that the budget workshop is an intensive number of hours of our time, and being in person to me be very important to do that. It's a huge document for our community. I would recommend perhaps going to the CCBCC large room and having tables were 6 feet apart if we needed to make it work for the budget workshop. I could think I could work with that, quite frankly, but I do think the budget should be in person as best we can social distance in that way. But I think council and CW is going to virtual as we had done previously. I'm okay with that if we go that direction.
Okay. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. How long do we need to be taking a virtual meeting break? before. I mean, this is until this is not, you're not proposing to do this indefinitely, are you?
No, I'm hoping when they start relaxing the public health measures again is when sort of we come off. So right now they've prohibited in private gatherings. That's a mandatory. So if they start allowing in private gatherings again, that's when I would sort of see the signal is to be able to gather back in person again.
But we are not a private gathering as such. This is a question of setting an example.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, I'm reasonably willing to support that, although in the interest of setting an example. But I would like to have some date when we will at least reconsider meetings in person. And yes, I'd agree with the other speakers who have suggested that we do need to meet in person for a budget workshop.
Okay, Councillor Barnhart, then I'm going to put a motion on the table.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for bringing it up, Your Worship. What the thought that's going through my mind is I can certainly make it work on Zoom, and in person is okay, although I do find it difficult if we're in a large room and we don't have sound capabilities. It's going to be more difficult than on Zoom. So moving to another, like we've got the sound kind of working here. So if we were to go to the CCBCC, while it might be safer, the sound might not work. I don't know. I'm willing to try if that's what the majority feels. But I also have a sense that there might not be a choice, because I think we're moving somewhat towards 2-week lockdown, and that was tried in BC, and it seems to be coming this way. And I mean, again, if it happens, we will have no choice on that. So I think we need to prepare for that inevitability and think of what other options we might have, even for the budget workshop.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I hear what everybody's saying about the budget workshop. And so I will take that away and work with the CAO to see if we can't find something to do with that. I'm just saying I'll take that, the council's wishes on the budget workshop. I'll take that. I'll have a meeting with you and we'll see what we can do surrounding an in-person meeting for budget. But I am going to move, unless the CAO wants to weigh in a bit.
No, we can have that conversation. But what I wanted to offer is we will not be able to live stream if we move this to another facility unless we hire somebody to come in and do that for us. So that's going to be an extra cost if you want to do that with the budget workshop.
But do we have the capability to record it and put it out later?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to move that council.
Oh, that's right. We wouldn't have the sound system. There will be some costs associated.
Yeah, there will be some costs, and we'll have a discussion. So I'll move that council resume virtual meetings until such a time as the public health measures start to relax, with the exception being the budget workshop, which the CAO and I will work on. Councillor Hendricks.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on this also. And my comments would be that I'd have no issue with going to virtual, including the budget process. I'd have no issue with that. I think if you leave this chamber, then you leave. And you end up back at Zoom. Everything is here. The capabilities are here. The live streaming is here. The sound systems are here. It's all here. Adding tables that are 6 feet apart does what? I'm not sure. So that's where I'd be. And if the setup is that, as Councilor Barnard says, we're coming to a 2-week lockdown potentially, well, then that's reality. And be happy to do it from Zoom. No issue at all. So thank you.
Fair enough. So I think that's a very apt summary. Call the question. All in favor? Councillor Stout. Oh, no, it's sometimes the keys stick and it's slow. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Which brings us to item 11, CAO's update.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council and members of the public. Just a couple items here. It's been a long meeting. We still have been in camera. I wanted to talk very briefly about the snow removal. We have changed our system significantly and believe we have enhanced it significantly, but this was our first snowfall, record snowfall, I might add. So we're only going to get better at this. One of the biggest changes that the public will notice is that we're now windrowing into the middle of the lane. That allows us the ability to get in and remove that snow with our target is within 5 days. But it also is going to create a significant change when the freeze thaw hits in the spring and we get rid of that snow that's along the curbs and along the sidewalks and causes a lot of drainage and a lot of ice issues. So as I said, we've had record snowfalls in the past 4 days. This is the first rollout of the new system. We've also gone to a new shift schedule. So we have operators on 7 days a week. There's crews that work Monday to Friday and crews that work Wednesday to Sunday. So for the most part, that is all being taken care of on straight time. So we expect to see some savings there as well. I agree that I thought the crews did a fabulous job in their first go around, and I'll certainly pass that on to them. But what I will say to the public is have some patience with us because it's only going to get better. So with that, thank you. You reiterated about this earlier. Our condolences go out to the families of the 3 people who died recently at the Chateau Vitelaine. We've had an outbreak there. There are currently 17 confirmed cases in that facility. We got that information yesterday or earlier today. In Alberta, reported 644 new cases. There's close to 8,000 active cases right now, 39 of which are in the ICU. Those 39 in the ICU are using up almost over 50% of the available ICU beds for COVID, and that's where the real crunch hits. I've been in several meetings with AHS this week, and that is certainly a major concern, is the ability to deliver healthcare. You see that on the news that it's backing up a lot of elective stuff, but it's also a lot more serious than that. I agree with Councillor Barnhart. I think we're going to see a change here, and it's going to come very quickly, and our discussions about virtual meetings are going to be moot. There were 7 new deaths in Alberta. Beaumont now has 41 active cases. 67 have recovered. We've recorded 3 deaths. I think that number's inaccurate. I believe it's 4 for a total of 111. These are coming predominantly from private social gatherings. I saw and we sent to council today, the preview of the outbreaks that's going to be released tomorrow. And there are several sports teams where the entire team has come down with COVID, 14, 18 members of, there's 3 different hockey teams that you're going to see tomorrow. But the government is really putting this back in our laps and ours, being each citizen in Alberta, to cut out these social gatherings. And people have got to take this seriously. I was involved in several discussions today, and we know that demographic of between 20 and 40 and 50 years old are the ones that are passing this along for the most part. And I really hope it's not a feeling of invincibility and that you can survive and get through this. Because then I look at Chateau Vitelaine and we just had 3 deaths. Well, guess what? That came from that age group, was brought into there, and that itself is 100% preventable. I know I sound like I'm preaching, and I'm taking the opportunity to say what I've heard a lot of councillors say to me in the last several days. This thing is dead serious, and the biggest control we have amongst is ourselves. We've got to stop those private social gatherings. Also, I just want to end this on passing a shout out to all those healthcare workers and service providers that are still been going. This thing's been going for 8 months, and they're still out there doing what they're doing. So with that, there's an update for you and a little bit of a preaching to hopefully some folks that will listen and do things differently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Theo. I do appreciate the update on COVID. It just goes to show how fast it can rise in our community. I mean, we went over almost overnight from 23 to 40. So, all right. Do you have a question about this, Councillor? Or? All right, quick question.
Thank you, Worship. That's just through CEO to communications. The new way of doing the snow removal, I think it's been well received. People have talked as well too. I think it's a great idea how we're doing it. Can we have maybe a communication piece put together to kind of help us explain to citizens the new methodology? Give some thoughts. I'm not looking for a yes or no right now, but maybe consider the idea of doing that because it's a new methodology. I think it's going to be good for us in the springtime. Thank you.
CEO or Mr. Bruskowski.
To Councillor Dunlop, through your worship. Yes, thanks for that. I do know that we do have a strategy. We did develop a new communication strategy for this winter. I will make sure and take that into consideration for that. But we have just launched, just to note, update council that we have launched that. And what we are trying to do is drive people to the website where it does explain a number of things, how the service works, service levels, it will eventually have the maps, and also winter driving tips, because this is a winter city and residents do need to keep that in mind, and that while we do have our staff out there working as hard as they can, this is a winter city. People should drive accordingly, and they should consider winter tires, and I'll put a plug in for that as well.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to item 13, notice of motion. Notice of motion from members of council. Seeing none, I'd like to move that we move into closed session to discuss collaborative economic development. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? That carries unanimously.